posted by user Red Founder, player wasn't paying attention. So we were at the end of our small campaign. The enemy was escaping in a vehicle and the group was trying to carefully figure out how to handle this. Suddenly, our quiet player launches a massive missile from his robot and blows up the vehicle. Except he never had it on his sheet. No missile was ever given to him, so I asked, "Where did you get the missile from?" He replied, "Oh, I picked it up at the robot place." "You mean the silo?" "Yeah, that. We passed it and I picked it up." "You mean the giant 200-foot missile the group shot last session?" Ew. Greetings, travelers and seekers of tales of wonder and amusement. It is I, the Lunar Skald, here to regale you with such fanciful tales. And to begin, let us start with For the Emperor! Anyways, so yes, that is a bit of a hint of a story that we're going to get into. But for now, we have something else to sort of muddle things up a little bit. But before we even get into either of those stories, I have a bit of an update I'd like to make considering my work scheduling. So the one I mentioned before isn't necessarily the one I'm going to be keeping. Don't worry, I still have the early mornings, and I don't know if you can tell, but it has been making me incredibly tired, and I just haven't really had the energy to do a whole lot during the weekdays, and sometimes even in my weekends, so please help. I mean, as much as I know I get to have more time to myself for the afternoons and the evenings, the fact that I have to get to bed early, only to wake up still exhausted and tired, I just don't know what to do. But wish me luck in being able to figure out that mess. But without further ado, let's get into a story, shall we? As you probably know, D&D sadly can be filled with a lot of weirdos. I mean, there are plenty of good players and groups that you can find, but obviously you are going to run into those problem players that think they can just get a girlfriend or that their charisma stats lead to actual relationships in the real life, or just really weird ones in D&D. However that goes, please just be mindful that not everybody is necessarily going to be interested in it, and, well, let's just see if we can find an example of a really bad take, shall we? The Waifu Seeker, posted by Mason Laban. For this tale, we must venture into the realm of D&D 5e. Our relevant cast includes the DM, the Paladin, and myself. There were, of course, others in our campaign, but they did not take part in what went wrong. Also, my apologies if the overview nature of this post makes it a bit harder to read through. Around 2017, I was looking for a roleplay-focused D&D game and came across one on Roll-D20 that used a completely homebrewed world. After sitting in on a session of one of their other campaigns to see if our playstyles would match, I set about on fully joining. For the most part, things were fine. No one was trying to bone everything in sight, we didn't have a murder hobo, and our rules lawyer was more lax, not in terms of them wanting to fuck things, stereotype of Roma and traveler culture. By the way, I would very much like to point out that I do appreciate this person for using the correct term. It is not the G word. That is actually a bit of a slander, a bit of a racial slur. It is actually Roma. They are not the G word, they are Roma. Just a little bit of a thing I wanted to mention is all. Continuing on. But that was about it. As someone with half Romanical, I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, I actually just have never seen that full-on word is all, so I apologize if I did. Heritage, and direct connection to them in terms of interactions. This caused me to roll my eyes, but nothing more. I learned long ago that these stereotypes were par for the course and paid it little mind. The other players and I interacted with them when needed, but otherwise explored other options. The Paladin, on the other hand, sought to romance one of them. enchanted by the free spirits and exotic mannerisms presented. After this reached fruition, it resulted in a talk in the general chat between the DM and the paladin. The DM lamented how he wished he could find a Roma or traveler woman so he could live in much the same way. Since this was put where everyone could see it, I commented that Roma and traveler groups do not act like that, and that his interpretation was more in line with hippies than the groups he was speaking of. This resulted in the DM questioning how I would know that, with how supposedly elusive said groups are, and the paladin claiming I was talking out of my ass. I revealed my heritage, and the DM backed down. But the paladin was adamant that there aren't any real G-slurs that live in the Americas, how the only actual communities of them are in Europe, and how all the European ones definitely act as presented. I asked him not to use that word since we ourselves aren't unified on how to approach it, that it has historically been used as an ethnic slur, and told him that it'd be great if he could stop being a willfully ignorant and belligerent gaje. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation of the word, but if it's not, do correct me. I am open to that. Before it could continue, the DM kicked him. Also, yes, I do realize my jumping to insult him in response wasn't the best thing to do in the moment. Hindsight often works like that. A few days after this concluded, the DM started contacting me about fixing his NPC caravan. For reference, this DM was progressive, and due to this, I took this as an attempt to repair what he may have misinterpreted as a slightly charred bridge. I replied that I could help to a degree, but that talking in depth on our culture to outsiders is usually seen as taboo. He agreed to the limited scope, and we set to work. Jumped to a few months down the line, and he asked if I wanted to remake my character as part of his modified caravan, which I refused. He then brought in a reoccurring character that was romantically interested in mine, to which my character's reaction was to grab the closest party member's arm and feign that she was with them. This character continued his pursuits until I asked him through DMs to please knock it off. About a week after that, and he stated through DMs that he has always had a great interest in my people, how I was a friend and that he wanted to progress past that. I turned him down. From that point on, my character was shoved to the side to the point of some quest givers not wanting her to work for them. I asked him about it, and he initially denied it happening. Due to this, I gave it another week before stating he was doing it again via DMs. In response, he rounded back to the quote, rejection, adding how he didn't understand why he was rejected when my people were so passionate and how I must just be an outlier. I told him he already got his answer and explained how lashing out in frustration as well as having statements including the words "your people" wasn't a good tactic to get his way. He asked if I was calling him prejudiced. I said yes, but that I saw it was partially unintentional, and he kicked me. I have not heard from him since, and according to one of the other players, the game only lasted for 2 more months before it came to a complete halt. Edit, I typed this up before I was fully awake, and since then have noticed some grammatical errors. Not to worry about, OP, but ooh, yes, that is definitely an issue. For those of you that are progressive, do be aware that sometimes not really sometimes, that just because you're progressive, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not prejudiced. It's always important to be sure that you know exactly what you're talking about, and of course be open to critique when you are talking about other people's cultures and ethnicities. I mean, the Paladin was definitely by far the worst offense for obvious reasons, because they decided to go into believing that the Roma were based on their stereotypes. And for a while, DM was based on that as well, but did seem to clean up their act. Unfortunately, then the DM just doubles down because they were rejected. Not really the best way you're going to get somebody to like you. really isn't, and definitely a no on just because you're progressive or woke, which, by the way, is not necessarily a progressive term, but made up by people who definitely want to try and keep their prejudices. But regardless, the idea of being woke, it's not just trying to look good, it's actually trying to be educated on other people's sort of cultures, it's actually getting to know people. I don't know how that's such a difficult thing to understand, but apparently some people just aren't willing to get that and are just more than willing to pretend, at least to get a booty call. And to those people, I say, fuck you. Now for the final tale. It is one where we begin to set off into the tale of the grim, dark sci-fi world of Warhammer 40k. There is no peace. Only war. Wait, I didn't say that right. Let me try that again. And wait, no. Actually, you know what? Never mind. Let's just get into the story, shall we? Posted by user Nihabdi. Is that how it's said? I don't know. 40k to mix it up. Sorry for the long post. This was a long time ago with the people from middle school and high school. We were playing Dark Heresy 1st edition, and I almost always play something sneaky. This time I picked up a sniper, played as a disgraced noble who was picked up by the Inquisition to help eliminate some nasty targets. It was meant as a short campaign with some stupid hijinks and some killer, literally 4 out of the 6 of us lost characters, combat. The mission that sparked the horror story was a simple one. Eliminate a corrupt priest before he spreads chaos across the planet. I won't bore you with the long story. Suffice to say, after some combat, interrogation, and persuasion, we discovered his location. We did a little stakeout, exploring the location in disguise and figuring out guard patrols, likely ambush spots, all that fun stuff. It was honestly a hell of a lot of fun, until it came time to do the assassination of the evil heretical priest. Wait, hold on. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and change things up by reading this as an Adeptus Sororitas. Oh, this is gonna be so much fun. We decided to do it in the middle of his sermon, while he was distracted and there weren't people paying attention to the surroundings. The rest of the party held back and waited for my signal. The plan was for me to try to eliminate the guy, or at least do as much damage as I could before they swept in and took care of the rest while I supported. And I snuck into the massive cathedrum. How dare they say cathedral? Those things don't exist, you heretic! It's cathedrum! Cathedrals are the heresy of the old... Sorry, got a little carried away. And up into a little alcove. I set up my sniper and set my sights on my target and pulled the trigger. I missed. Horribly. Oh, shame the Emperor. So bad that it was almost funny in retrospect. Okay, fair enough. The entire table gasped and groaned and complained that our plans had gone to waste. But then, I remembered that I had a fate point. Basically a free reroll in Dark Heresy. I had a single fate point that I hadn't spent all session, and was waiting for something big. This constituted as it, so I re-rolled the attack. Critical hit, and a headshot. In Dark Heresy, you rolled to confirm the crit, so I rolled again and confirmed. I ended up destroying the guy. Like he went from full HP to pink mist in a millisecond. Jeez, must have been a Slaaneshi heretic. The worst kind of heretic. Everyone cheered and laughed and celebrated. We calmed down a minute or two later because the guy running the game only stood there with a wicked smile on his face. I only let you try to do this because I didn't think you'd succeed. Now that you have, it completely ruins this boss fight that I planned out, so I'm going to rule that your attack misses. Your cover is blown, everyone else roll initiative. We all stood, all sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity, trying to comprehend what he was saying while he had that idiotic smile on his face still. Then we all started arguing about this heresy. How he was taking away player agency and making bad decisions. Soon the argument escalated into other things that the guy did in the campaign. Having character equipment randomly go missing, meeting his characters from other campaigns that were basically god NPCs, the whole works. The campaign fell apart the night. Nobody wanted to continue after his ruling and the subsequent discussion. Honestly, it was kind of fun up until that point, before months of gameplay crashed down because of his stupidity. Well, I suppose there's only one thing that could really summarize this whole thing. Are you ready for me to say it? You Warhammer fans probably are ready for me to say it. I'm gonna do it. I really am gonna do it. You ready? I'm also thinking some of my fans who are known for me talking about Warhammer are also ready for me to do it. You ready? Come on. Don't lie to me. You're ready. Heresy! Okay. There we go. Anyways, so yeah, that was really good up until that one singular point. I mean, come on, they succeeded in that role. Critically, even. That should be even more of a reason to basically say, oh, well, you succeeded. Guess that means you, jumped a few things. And let's be honest here, in tabletop role-playing games, things are never going to go according to plan. Even if you set up some fun, exciting boss battle, there are definitely other ways that the players can circumvent their way into avoiding it or making it a lot easier than it should be in your mind. After all, that's actually just kind of the fun about any tabletop role-playing game. I mean, I have definitely had my fair shares of my players doing wacky and crazy things when I was DMing, and I am expecting that to happen more when I actually get into my campaign that I'm planning on doing soon with some of my community members, but yeah, that's just kind of going to be a story for another time. But in all reality, things are never going to go according to plan. Your players are probably going to do some ridiculous stuff. And yes, the DM should be having fun, but taking away player agency and simply just doing something like, oh, well, the shot actually didn't hit. I mean, sure, that should have been a success, but I'm not gonna say it is. Plus, I mean, if you didn't plan on having this guy actually killed in that moment when there is clearly someone who is meant to take out high priority targets like a sniper, I mean, why did you even let him roll for it? I'm not even entirely sure what your plan was for that. I mean, why even bother with rolling it if your entire plan is not even having them succeed in the first place? There's just no point in that. So, and looking it over again, God DMPCs, truly heresy. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna end the video, so I hope you all enjoyed these stories for today, and that I hope you'll join me for more fanciful tales in the future. And until next time, may the Lunar embrace you as you rest well this evening. Farewell.